What if the state most people can only picture as an endless blur of cornfields, football stadiums, and highway exits on the way to somewhere they consider more interesting, has quietly invented more of the food sitting in your kitchen right now than almost anywhere else in America? What if the candy in your coat pocket, the burger on your grill, the ice cream bar you once chased down a suburban street, and the bowl of chili you have argued about with total strangers on the internet were all born in one flat, humble, endlessly underestimated Midwestern state? What if Ohio, the state the rest of the country treats as a punchline, a flyover, a shrug between the coasts, has been feeding this entire nation for well over a century and never once stopped to ask for the credit? Buckle up, because your relationship with Ohio is about to get a whole lot more complicated.
Hi, my name is David, and this is Food Origins, the show where we pull back the curtain on the foods you grew up eating and find out they came from somewhere you would never in 100 years have guessed. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button, because today we are going all in on the Buckeye State. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never drive past a sign that says, "Welcome to Ohio," and feel nothing ever again. Let us get into it. 11 foods, one state, and a story that most people have walked past their entire lives without ever knowing it was there. Food number 1, Cincinnati chili. Let us start with the one that makes people genuinely, spectacularly angry. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment. Because if you have only ever eaten Texas chili, a thick, meaty, bean-heavy, cumin-forward bowl of the stuff, and you sit down in Cincinnati expecting that, you are going to be confused, possibly a little offended, and then, if you have any sense at all, completely converted. Cincinnati chili is not a bowl of chili. It is a thin, silky, deeply spiced meat sauce ladled over a nest of spaghetti and then buried, and I mean buried, under a fluffy haystack of finely shredded, mild yellow cheddar. And here is where the story gets extraordinary. It was not invented by a Texan. It was not invented by a Mexican cook. It was invented in 1922 by two Macedonian immigrant brothers named Tom and John Karadziev, who opened a little stand called the Empress right next door to a burlesque theater. They were not trying to make chili at all. They were making a Mediterranean stew from back home, the kind of warm, spiced meat sauce their family had cooked for generations, and they served it over spaghetti to give the theater crowd something hearty and cheap. Here is the detail that stops people cold. The secret flavor of Cincinnati chili is not chili powder. It is cinnamon. It is allspice. It is clove. And in a lot of recipes, it is a whisper of unsweetened chocolate or cocoa. It is basically a Greek and Macedonian stew wearing a Texas name. Cincinnatians order it by number. A 3-way is spaghetti, chili, and cheese. A 4-way adds onions or beans. A 5-way adds both. And to this day, the city runs on it. From Skyline to Gold Star, served with a fistful of tiny oyster crackers. It is not really chili at all. It is an immigrant's memory of home, ladled over noodles, and it conquered a city. Food number 2, the hamburger.
Now, I have to be honest with you right up front, because intellectual honesty matters on this channel, and the hamburger is one of the most fiercely contested origin stories in all of American food. Several places claim it. New Haven claims it. Wisconsin claims it. Texas claims it. But one of the oldest and best documented claims belongs to two brothers from Akron, Ohio, named Frank and Charles Minches. The Minches brothers were traveling food concessionaires. They rolled from county fair to county fair in the 1880s selling hot sausage sandwiches, and business was good, until one hot day in 1885 when they ran out of pork and the local butcher had nothing left to sell them. So they did what resourceful, slightly desperate people have always done. They improvised. They bought ground beef instead, and because beef on its own tasted flat and boring to them, they seasoned it with coffee, brown sugar, and a blend of spices to give it depth. They slapped it between 2 slices of bread, and the crowd went wild for it. Here is the detail that reframes everything. The Minches brothers did not just stumble into the hamburger. They also claimed to have had a hand in popularizing the ice cream cone at a World's Fair years later. These were serial food inventors, working out of a wagon, feeding hungry fairgoers with whatever they had. Now, is the claim airtight? No.
History is messy, and other cities will fight you to the death over this one. But two brothers from Akron, Ohio, running out of pork and reaching for beef and a handful of coffee and brown sugar is as good a birthplace as any for the single most American food ever created. Sometimes the most iconic thing in the world starts with a butcher who is simply out of stock. Food number 3, lifesavers. I want you to picture the roll of hard, ring-shaped candy that has been rattling around the bottom of purses and glove compartments for over a century. That little tube of fruit or peppermint discs, each one with a hole punched cleanly through the middle. That candy was invented in Cleveland, Ohio in 1912 by a chocolatier named Clarence Crane, and it was born out of pure commercial panic. Crane made chocolates, and chocolate has one enormous enemy: summer. Every hot Cleveland afternoon, his stock would soften, slump, and melt into a useless mess, and his sales would collapse for months. So Crane decided he needed a candy that could survive the heat. Something hard, something minty, something that would not turn to soup on a shelf in July. He went to a pharmaceutical supplier who had a machine designed to press pills, and that machine punched a small hole in the center of each mint. Crane looked at those little rings and thought they resembled tiny life preservers, the kind you throw to a drowning man. So he called them lifesavers. Here is the detail that genuinely stops people. Clarence Crane did not get rich off this. He sold the rights to the entire idea for $2,900 to a man named Edward Noble, who turned it into a candy empire worth a fortune. And in one of the stranger footnotes in American history, Clarence Crane happened to be the father of Hart Crane, one of the most celebrated poets the country ever produced. A Cleveland chocolatier trying to survive a heat wave accidentally invented one of the most recognizable candies on earth, and then sold it for roughly the price of a used car. Food number 4, the Good Humor Bar. Stay with the sweets for a moment, because Ohio is not finished with your childhood yet. Picture a chocolate-coated bar of vanilla ice cream on a wooden stick. Now picture the white truck, the jingling bells, the driver in the crisp white uniform, the entire summer ritual of running out the front door with a fistful of coins. All of that traces back to a confectioner in Youngstown, Ohio, named Harry Burt in 1920. Burt already made a chocolate-coated lollipop he called the Jolly Boy Sucker, and he had figured out a special chocolate coating that hardened beautifully. His idea was simple: take that coating and put it on ice cream. The problem was that a chocolate-coated block of ice cream was a disaster to hold. It was messy, it dripped, it coated your fingers. And then his son, or by some accounts his daughter, said the obvious thing: put it on a stick, like the lollipops. So Burt froze ice cream with a wooden stick jammed inside, dipped the whole thing in his hardening chocolate, and the Good Humor Bar was born. Here is the detail that makes it perfect. Burt was so convinced he had something special that he traveled all the way to Washington with a 5-gallon pail of his bars to secure a patent. And the bells that jingled on every Good Humor truck for decades, the sound that meant summer to millions of American kids, came from the bells off his son's bobsled. A Youngstown candy shop, a messy chocolate experiment, and a bobsled bell gave the entire country the ice cream truck. Food number 5, the Klondike Bar. What would you do for a Klondike bar? You have heard the jingle. You have pictured the square slab of vanilla ice cream sealed inside that silver foil wrapper, hidden under a thin, crackly shell of chocolate. And I would bet money you never once imagined it came from Ohio. But it did. The Klondike Bar was created by the Isley Dairy Company, founded by a Swiss immigrant family who built a chain of dairies and shops across Ohio and western Pennsylvania, centered around Mansfield and the Youngstown area back in the 1920s. The Isleys were relentless innovators. They also invented a towering, absurdly tall ice cream cone they called the skyscraper that became a regional legend. Here is the detail worth knowing. They named their new chocolate-coated bar the Klondike, after the Klondike Gold Rush, because they wanted it to feel premium, cold, and just a little bit adventurous. And that silver foil wrapper was genuinely innovative packaging for its time. For decades, the Klondike Bar was a closely guarded regional treasure, an Ohio and Pennsylvania secret, before it finally spread across the whole country with a polar bear on the box and a jingle that lodged itself permanently in the national brain. That is now the second ice cream empire on this list to come out of the Youngstown area. This one flat, hardworking corner of Ohio, quietly invented the treats the rest of us assumed just fell from the sky. Food number 6. Dum-Dums. Look at the little bowl of lollipops sitting on the counter at your bank, your barber shop, your doctor's office, the ones handed out to kids for surviving something unpleasant. Those tiny, colorful, flat-topped suckers are Dum-Dums, and they were invented in Ohio in 1924 by the Akron Candy Company. The name itself is a small piece of marketing genius. A sales manager wanted a name so simple, so easy, that any child, even one barely able to talk, could ask for it by name. Dum-Dum. In 1953, the Spangler Candy Company of Bryan, Ohio, bought the brand, and they still make them today, cranking out something like 12 million lollipops every single day in that one small Ohio town. But here's the detail that turns this into a genuinely great story. The famous mystery flavor, the one wrapped in the white paper with the question mark, is not actually a flavor at all. The Dum-Dums machines run continuously, day and night. When one flavor batch runs out and the next one begins, the factory does not stop and clean everything. The tail end of one flavor blends with the beginning of the next, right there in the machine.
Rather than throw that mixed candy away, Spangler wraps it in the question mark wrapper and sells it as the mystery flavor. It is not a recipe, it is thrift. The mystery flavor is quite literally the sound of an Ohio factory refusing to waste a single drop, and they turned it into one of the most beloved little marketing legends in candy history. Food number 7, the Buckeye. If you have ever been to Ohio around the holidays, or anywhere near an Ohio State football game, you have seen them. Little balls of rich peanut butter fudge, dipped most of the way into chocolate, but leaving a perfect circle of pale peanut butter peeking out of the top. They are called Buckeyes, and they are named after the nut of the Ohio Buckeye tree, the state tree, the source of the state nickname, and the inspiration for the Ohio State mascot, Brutus Buckeye.
The candy is credited in its modern form to an Ohio woman named Gail Tabor, who popularized the recipe in the 1960s, and it spread across the state until it became as essential to an Ohio Christmas as a decorated tree. But here is the detail that I find absolutely wonderful and deeply, unmistakably Ohio. The real Buckeye nut, the actual thing from the tree that the candy is designed to imitate, is mildly poisonous. You cannot eat it raw. It will make you sick. So the people of Ohio looked at their beloved state symbol, a toxic nut you are not allowed to eat, and thought, you know what? Let us make a candy that looks exactly like that, so we can finally eat it. That is the whole invention. They took the one thing on the tree they were forbidden to put in their mouths and recreated it in peanut butter and chocolate. Only Ohio would look at a poisonous nut and answer it with dessert. Food number 8. Chef Boyardee. Walk down the canned food aisle of any grocery store in America, and you will see him. The smiling, round-faced man in the tall white chef's hat, printed on cans of ravioli and spaghetti and meatballs. Most people assume he is a cartoon, a mascot invented by an advertising team. He was not. He was a real man, and he built his empire in Cleveland, Ohio. His name was Ettore Boiardi, an Italian immigrant who arrived in America as a teenager and worked his way up through some of the finest kitchens in the country, including the Plaza Hotel in New York. In 1924, he opened his own restaurant in Cleveland called Il Giardino d'Italia, and his tomato sauce became so wildly popular that customers kept begging to take it home. So Boiardi started packing it into cleaned-out milk bottles for them, and then into cans, and then into a factory. Here is the detail that reframes the whole label. He spelled his name phonetically, Boy-R-D, for one reason, so that ordinary Americans who could not pronounce Boiardi could still ask for his food by name. And that smiling chef on the can is not a drawing of nobody, it is Ettore himself. During the Second World War, his factory ran 24 hours a day producing rations for American troops overseas, and the man received a civilian honor from the government for his contribution to the war effort. The cartoonish chef you have laughed at your whole life was a real Cleveland restaurateur who fed the army and put Italian food into every pantry in America. Food number 9. The banana split. 3 scoops of ice cream, a banana sliced lengthwise down the middle, chocolate and strawberry and pineapple, whipped cream, nuts, and cherries,
all piled into a long, boat-shaped dish. It is the most extravagant dessert in the American soda fountain tradition, and Ohio claims it. Specifically, the small town of Wilmington, Ohio, claims that in 1907, a restaurant owner named Ernest Hazard invented it. The story goes that Hazard's restaurant sat near Wilmington College, and during the slow, freezing winter months when the students were his main customers, he needed something new and spectacular to lure them in. So he held a contest among his own staff to dream up a brand new dessert, and when nobody delivered, he invented one himself, splitting a banana and building an outrageous sundae around it. Now, in the spirit of honesty, I have to tell you this is one of the great disputed origins in American food. The town of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, has an older and more widely cited claim, dating to 1904, from a young pharmacy clerk named David Strickler. Both towns are absolutely certain they are right. But here's the detail that settles it in Ohio's favor, at least emotionally. Wilmington, Ohio throws an entire festival about it. Every June, the town holds a banana split festival, complete with a giant banana split. Because Ohio does not just claim a food, it commits to it. Whoever technically got there first, possession is 9/10 of the sundae, and Ohio is the state that shows up every year with the whipped cream. Food number 10. Wendy's, the square burger, and the Frosty. In November of 1969, a man named Dave Thomas opened a hamburger restaurant in downtown Columbus, Ohio, and named it after his 8-year-old daughter, Melinda Lou, whose nickname was Wendy. Now, there were already plenty of burger chains in America by 1969. What made this one different was a set of very deliberate choices. Thomas made his beef patties square, so the corners hung out over the edges of the round bun, and he built the entire brand identity around a simple line: "We don't cut corners." The square patty was not a gimmick. It was a visual promise that you were getting more meat than the bun could contain.
And then there was the Frosty. Thomas designed it on purpose to sit exactly between a milkshake and soft-serve ice cream. Thick enough that you needed a spoon, but just soft enough that eventually you could drink it. A chocolate and vanilla blend, engineered to be its own category. Here's the detail that makes Dave Thomas one of the great American stories. He dropped out of school as a teenager, and it haunted him. Decades later, as a self-made millionaire, he went back and earned his high school equivalency diploma, and the class voted him most likely to succeed. Before Wendy's, he had actually helped rescue a group of failing Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises, working directly with Colonel Sanders himself. A Columbus burger stand, named after a little girl, built on square corners and a spoonable milkshake, grew into one of the largest hamburger chains on the entire planet. Food number 11. Barberton chicken. And we end with the one almost nobody outside Ohio has ever heard of, which is exactly why it belongs here. In the town of Barberton, Ohio, nicknamed the Magic City, there is a style of fried chicken so specific, so local, and so beloved that the town has quietly built its identity around it. It is called Barberton chicken, or Serbian fried chicken, and it was born out of the Great Depression. When Serbian immigrant families in Barberton lost their factory jobs, some of them turned to what they knew: farming and cooking. A restaurant called Belgrade Gardens opened in 1933, started by a Serbian immigrant couple who raised chickens and began frying them in the old country style, in lard, until the skin turned deep golden and shatteringly crisp. But the chicken is only half of it. The dish comes with a side that exists almost nowhere else on earth. A spicy, tangy tomato and rice dish the locals simply call hot rice, or Serbian hot sauce, and a sharp, vinegary coleslaw to cut through the richness. Here is the detail that makes it so perfectly Ohio. Barberton chicken never went national. There is no chain, there is no franchise, no drive-through, no coast-to-coast advertising campaign. Instead, the town has a handful of rival chicken houses, and the locals will argue with genuine passion over which one does it best, the same way they have for generations. It was born from immigrant survival during the hardest years America ever faced, and it stayed home. And honestly, Barberton likes it exactly that way. It is the most Ohio ending I could possibly give you. 11 foods. One state that everybody thought they understood and almost nobody actually did. Ohio is not a flyover. It is not a punchline.
It is the pantry of America.
It is the state that took a Macedonian stew and turned it into Cincinnati chili, that answered a butcher running out of pork with the hamburger, that beat a summer heat wave and gave us lifesavers, that scored an entire nation's childhood with ice cream on a stick, that turned factory thrift into a mystery flavor, that looked at a poisonous nut and made a candy out of it, that put a real, hard-working immigrant chef on a can and fed the army, that throws a festival for a dessert every single summer, that cut square corners on purpose, and that fried Serbian chicken through the Depression and never once needed the rest of us to notice. Ohio has been feeding this country quietly, stubbornly, and brilliantly for over 100 years. If this changed the way you think about Ohio, or the way you think about that Klondike bar you had last week, hit that like button and subscribe to Food Origins, because we have stories exactly like this one lined up for states, cities, and cuisines that are going to completely rearrange the way you see your plate. And tell me in the comments which one of these 11 surprised you the most. I have a feeling it is going to be the hamburger, but honestly, I think the Buckeye is going to sneak up on a lot of you. I have been wrong before, and I cannot wait to hear it.